Hello, I'm Claire Moore. I have the honour to be a Labor Party Senator for Queensland. I am happy to talk with people about why we should be part of a strong Labor Party and why you could vote for anyone to be your president, but I'd like it to be an informed vote and one that you know about and want to do. So please contact me at any time. Well, I was always interested in joining the Labor Party, and I did try very young, but it was a funny story about breaking into a very small group of men who didn't think that I was ready to join and thought I actually came from the local tea shop with the afternoon tea. But I finally joined about 12 to 13 years ago, and I joined because I had to move beyond being a supporter, because I'd worked on polling booths and in campaigns for over 20 years. For a whole range of Labor members at different levels, but there just came a time when you had to do a little bit more, and being in the public service as I was for many years, the public service was being pretty badly attacked by the Howard government. You just had to make a change and be more active. Well, you just continue the work, don't you, in terms of working with campaigns, working with people, talking about issues, making sure that people keep the debate alive and active, and not letting any of those awful, ignorant, bland comments that attack the Labor Party, our values, our unions, not letting them go by unanswered in the nicest possible way. So that's part of the work. And just doing the work, you know, door knocking, stalls, working with people. I actually love meeting with people and talking about issues. I don't like door knocking. I know you're not supposed to say that, but I always feel as though I'm intruding on people. But if people are there and wanting to talk about an issue, that's part of the job. And of course, since I have been elected, that just is maintained. But it's not just for elected representatives, it's to maintain the strength of the party. Well, the vision is that we retain the strength of this wonderful, wonderful party. You know, we have such a great history, and most people know that I'm really interested in history and tradition, and I've done a lot of work with the Barcoolan Workers History area out there. And when you go out there and see and learn about the people who really were the inspiration for forming the Labor Party, there's a bit of a legacy for us that we can't move away from that, and we have a tradition to remember and a future to value. And I think for wanting to be involved at the presidency level, I didn't wake up one morning and say, I think I'll be the ALP president. I spent most of my life encouraging women to get involved where they think they should be. And where they should be is in their political process. So it's one thing to encourage women to be involved, it's another thing when you have the opportunity to give yourself a go, you should take it up, and I think that's where it is. But the vision is that we have a party that's vibrant, strong, has good policy and respects its members. And I think that we have an opportunity now. There's a lot of discussion going on about Labor Party reform. Well, there's always been discussion about Labor Party reform. If anyone thought the party was a monolithic organisation where everybody agreed in 1899 and 1905 and all those other areas where people were talking about forming the Labor Party, they didn't know who was involved. So now we have a chance. We've had a really strong review of our activities. We have discussions out there that we can be involved in to look at where we go next. So I think now's a good time to be involved, and now's a good time to grow. Well, as I said, we need to talk with people. I think people have been a little reluctant to talk about our issues, to talk about why the party is important and why being a member is important. I think there's a lot of people out there who understand that the Labor Party's been around a long time, that we have such a wonderful relationship with the trade union movement, workers' rights, safety. When you look at our history, looking at social justice issues, no political organisation has done more and should be more proud than the ALP is for what we've done. But we've been reluctant to say, come and play with us, come and talk with us, be part of it. We want you. And when you're here, we want you to be respected and valued, and you're not just going to be called up to stuff envelopes or to knock on doors or to hand out things on election day. We want to hear your views about issues, and we want to take those views and form policies. So it's part of that ongoing communication about which I spoke before, and it's taking up that responsibility. Now, I'm not big on saying we have to get a certain number, and I know that the Prime Minister has put out this challenge of 8,000. I think we take it person by person, member by member, branch by branch. It's amazing how quickly it can grow. Well, I've always had an interest in the health area, and certainly recently in terms of the issues around mental health, I have an absolute passion for that. And engaging people in our policy, which is a perfect area to say. We've just responded to a community need in putting a huge investment into mental health. It's not enough, we need to have more. But in developing that, I'm really keen to work with people within the community and hopefully in our party to develop that. Issue around social justice, of course. I mean, I spent many years of my life working in the then Department of Social Security. I know the kind of legislation that our party has led to make sure that there's a sense of equity in this country, and we need to continue to do that. And that's going to be a real challenge when we're looking at budget responsibilities as well. I don't like the term bleeding heart, and I think we've got to get rid of that kind of process. But when we're talking about compassion, I think that what we need to do is put compassion into the development of our policy in all kinds of areas. You just can't label things, but in areas around Indigenous policy and closing the gap, which we all celebrate and acknowledge, we need to continue to work on that, and we can, and work with Aboriginal members in our party as well. So that's the kind of thing. But I can talk with you for a long time about areas I like to work in. But there is a great need in our community to maintain a sense of community. And I think that we can work on social policy to ensure that happens. That's not running away from the overwhelming need to have fiscal responsibility, and you can't do the job you need to do if you run out of money. So you have to understand about fair taxation, fair rights in the community, senses of responsibility, but all those things should be clearly known that we're looking at having equity and opportunity for everybody who lives in this country. That's important. And of course I also take a long-term interest in the areas, and the special area of asylum seekers, and I think that that will always be an issue that Australia will have to work through simply by nature of the way, where our country is and the way we've been able to have a strong, secure, peaceful country when many other people haven't got it. So there's no simple answer to those things, but we have a responsibility to work harder. I would think that we have to look at the recent work that we've done about making sure people have strong, secure jobs and a sense of hope for the future. And that's been the kind of work that we've been doing over the last few months. Over our whole term, and 2 terms of government is not enough, we need more. But making sure that we have people in our community who are safe, who feel safe, have a chance to have a effective workplace, security in their future and hope for the future. So many policies are linked with that, and it's not just one area, but that's the kind of thing that I think the Labor Party stands for. Strong community, strong workplaces, strong people working together. Well, that's the ongoing challenge, and I think some of the things I've said talk about how we've been struggling with this for a while. Once again, it's actually looking at the issues and engaging with the people who care about the issues, not getting into debates about whose policies are better than anybody else's, and not getting into futile arguments with other parties, no matter which party they are, but really looking at areas about which people care and giving them the opportunity within that area to be involved. And that doesn't mean sign them up straight away to the party. I mean, sometimes I think we are so keen to do that that we forget that we're part of a community as well. So I would think that we have a great history of working with community. That's what the Labor Party does best. We don't create policies and go out and impose them on other people. We work with the people who care and think about the area. Like with mental health, you work with the people who are working through that themselves by being consumers, which is a great term, I love that, consumers. Working with the system, the people who provide the services now, who know what it's like to work in an area, and work with we who are in the party to make it better. And I think that's the way to do it. There's no magic answer. I mean, people talk about social networking, people talk about tools that can be used. The best tools are individuals who care. Always a challenge, but it's amazing how many times it's been quoted recently, and that has to be positive. The platform is the basic information about which our party is built. So that engages with people to come up with policy areas where we think we should move forward. Then there are always the responsibilities of government about what you can do and actively implement. I think there is always a relationship between governing and the platform, and we've got to ensure that people take that seriously. So that comes back to the party members talking to their elected representatives. We're all members of the party, and making clear to them this is what they expect and this is what our party wants to happen. And the party platform is not just some tome that sits in a shelf somewhere and after every conference is closed away and never used again. It's dynamic. People have got to work with it. So we've got to get away from the view that the party and the platform and the parliaments are all separate. They're all entwined. Well, I think all the ideas that are there about rebuilding and engaging, which is what we're talking about. I think the issue that people have been focusing on about having this wider area about how we form our representatives, it's one of those things I think we should taste it and see. My mum always said, you know, that you should always keep an open mind on things, and that's good advice. If people say no automatically, it actually closes down moving forward. So we should see, we should learn and give things a go, and I think that was kind of the spirit behind the review. We identified that there was a need to do something after a bad result. We often do that in the party. After a bad result, we review. I think that we should be reviewing all the time, not just after we have something that makes us upset. But I think, as with parliamentary processes, when people make recommendations, it doesn't mean they'll actually happen, but it does mean they expect they should be considered. And I think that has been happening with this review. I'd like to see much more discussion within our party fora about this, and actually making sure that people truly understand it, because it's a big document, the review document, and I think some people have been a bit reluctant to dive into it. They need to be more accessible, so we can talk about the recommendations without necessarily reading the whole tome, but we should be talking about the recommendations. So there's so many of them talking about rebuilding, working with the community, really clarifying what the relationship between the Labor Party and the Labor movement should be. And that's a real challenge for all of us. We will always be linked to Labor, L-A-B-O-U-R. That's who we are, that's what will make us strong. But the way it operates needs to be looked at very carefully. I think people have been made uncomfortable by it because they always jump straight to the American example, which not many of us have actually experienced anyway, so we're always hearing about it. My concern about it would be that party members feel as though that they're not getting the value that they've earned by making the decision, the clear choice to be a member of the party. So as long as we can ensure that we have that good, strong relationship with our local members and they know they're being valued in the process, I think it's a good thing to talk to the community, because after all, you're going out to the wider community as a potential candidate and seeking their support. So that you may as well do that in the pre-selection stage. Many people, and it's part of my own personal experience, believe that pre-selection periods can be just as damaging and as gruelling as the open selection process. So the pre-selection stuff is important, and it should not just be within the party, I think it should be in the community. You need their support to be effective and supportive, but it's always how are we going to work out the details and how it's going to operate. And I think it should be given a go, perhaps in a trial process. They're essential. I mean, my whole background is in the union, and I was a unionist a long time before I actively made the decision to join the party, because in terms of being in a workplace, you need to have a strong and vibrant union movement. So the unions will always be part of the Australian Labor Party. How the actual day-to-day operations operate, that should be looked at. And it should involve everyone, and it shouldn't be seen as some kind of trial of strength. It's a bit like, you know, any argument. Because you have disagreements doesn't necessarily mean that you've won or lost, and we tend to do that a lot. We will always have, I think the term is robust discussion within the ALP, but the unions are they're the backbone of our party and should be valued and rewarded. And where would we be in the Australian Labor Party without the amazing strength of the Australian trade union movement? I've always believed that we need to work more closely with the community as opposed with calling them in to vote for us in an electoral cycle. So I've always thought that perhaps at local levels it would be really useful if Labor Party members identified as Labor Party members in their other community activities. So when we're looking at things like major activities in a community around fundraising for different things, the range of issues we're raising, around environmental issues at the local level and at other levels, when we're talking about major causes such as the wonderful stuff that a feeder, the trade union overseas aid group does. It would be, I think, a really useful thing for the Australian Labor Party to be identified more clearly as taking a role in those things. I think we've narrowed our focus to a political focus, which we need to do if we're going to win elections, that's real. But in terms of being proud to be identified as part of our party and to tell people that we are part of the party, I think that would be something we could do at the community level and be more open about it.